glad to see you all here today, to be a part of history, to hear about history, and to support it and participate in it. It is so vital right now for us all to stay strong and hold the line. And we are trying to do that here to the best of our ability. And so I wanted to just put a bit of an extra plug in. Next Saturday, we will be hosting Dr. Catherine Ott. She is a curator at the Smithsonian Museum and the National Museum of American History, and she is the curator of their LGBTQ collection. It is taking courage for her to come here at this time and to continue to speak about her work. And so if you are available next Saturday at 1:30, please come out and support her and let her know that we all care and support the work that they are doing. Because I know, and I talked to my colleagues up there in DC, they need to know that those of us out here in the rest of the country, particularly in the South and the Heartland, care about their work and support it. So thank you for humoring my plug for next week. If you are able, one of the things you can certainly do right now is to support a history organization, whether that's the Irving Archives and Museum or Badge of Pride, which is doing amazing history work, or another museum, a history organization that you care about, lending them your support and letting them know that the work matters. We all need to hear that right now. We need to know that there is support out there for us in the community. So thank you for being here today. This is going to be such an amazing program. I'm so excited to get to listen to this program. And without further ado, I will introduce my partner in crime on this project, Adrienne Cardwell, the Executive Director of Badge of Pride and the curator of this amazing collection and exhibition. So, Adrienne.
All right. Thank you, Jen. Let's give it up for the Irving Archive and Museum team. Wow. These are, shall we say, interesting times. This group is doing tremendous work. We've been working on this project for 3 years to get to the point before we opened the doors. And it wasn't easy. So it was a lot of fundraising and a lot of research and a lot of writing and rewriting and fact checking and double fact checking and quadruple fact checking so that nobody could go in here and find anything wrong, right? Because you know that people are going to come and try to find something wrong with it. And so we've done a lot of due diligence to make sure that what you experience in that gallery is accurate and emotionally resonant. And if you haven't seen it yet, I encourage you after this to go and spend some time in there. If you have seen it, drag everybody you know. We're in 5 weeks, we close, 5 weeks. It's hard to believe, you work on something for so long and then it's already about to end. But I will say the work of Badge of Pride does not end after September 28th. We will be working to reformat this exhibit so that it can travel to more communities. And we will work with similar organizations to wherever we go, like the Dallas Way, like Yesterqueer. We'll be working with those local organizations to weave their own local narrative into the exhibit that you see, because every single person deserves to see themselves reflected back in a museum. And that's the heart of the work that we're doing. We also have some fabulous programming that we're getting ready to announce. I'm going to make a little bit of news here today before we announce it on Monday. But we invited about a dozen queer poets to come into the space and select an artifact or a theme. And they are working on those original works right now. So you will be able to come on October the 5th, will be after the exhibit closes. So it'll be a retrospective and a springboard to what comes next. But the thing that we've been really surprised by, quite frankly, is the generative aspect of this, that people are creating art as a result of their experience in this exhibit. So if you see the fabric of us, there's an art wall in there. That is people speaking, showing, directly to us what this means to them. And then the fact that we're going to have, it'll be 14 in total, LGBTQ poets from across North Texas to come and share their original creative work. Jen did the great plug for August the 30th, next Saturday. Catherine Ott. It's going to be a fabulous conversation. Tomorrow, we will be working with the Dallas Social Queer Organization, or DISCO, and we will be having an intergenerational conversation, right? So what has changed in the LGBTQ experience, what is still the same? And so we think that will be an interesting dialogue and conversation. We have this Wednesday, the North Texas LGBT Chamber of Commerce is hosting their Pride Happy Hour here at the museum in the evening, so it's going to be fabulous. And there will be, even though we're closing in just about 5 weeks, we're working on a few other things, maybe to kind of enhance the experience a little bit more. Now, to why we are all here today. First, I want to thank, I see Wesley over there. I want to thank Wesley Smoot and Unleashed LGBTQ+. It was great to co-present this event with them and to be able to bring Mark here and share his history with you. So now, to guide us through today's conversation is someone who knows how to ask the hard questions and occasionally dodge a few himself. I've seen it in action. Leo Cusimano is the publisher of Dallas Voice, and which is the premier media source for LGBTQ Texas and one of our sponsors of the exhibit. And they just celebrated 40 years last year, a remarkable achievement. Talk about documenting our history, 40 years. I mean, that's just really remarkable. Leo is a longtime advocate for queer journalism, storytelling, and community. And he's also one of the founding members of News is Out, a national queer media collaborative. So Leo has been amplifying LGBTQ voices for decades, and today he's turning the spotlight on someone who's been a mentor, collaborator, and co-conspirator. I'm sure they're going to talk about that. I spent some time with these two yesterday, and I'm like, y'all get up to some shenanigans, I'm almost certain. So please welcome to the stage a fierce leader, a fabulous friend, and the only publisher I know who can juggle deadlines, drag queens, and dinner reservations without breaking a sweat. Ladies and gentlemen, Leo Cusimano.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Adrian, for your leadership in our community and for your passion for our LGBTQ history. Your massive collection shines bright and keeps us all from being erased, as we just noticed yesterday with the crosswalks in Florida. So thank you so very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I have the honor and the occasional hazard of introducing someone who has been changing the world longer than I've been legally able to order a cocktail. Mark Segal is a legend, a Stonewall veteran, an LGBT media pioneer, a master of civil disobedience, and my personal mentor. He's interrupted Walter Cronkite on live TV, danced with politicians, and somehow managed to publish the Philadelphia Gay News without even running out of opinions or sequence. We have collaborated together for over a decade, and I can tell you, behind the headlines, behind the history making, Mark is a man of heart, humor, and enough stories to fill a network series, a Netflix series, though I'm not sure that they would all be ready for prime time. So Adrian, thank you. We may have to keep a timer on us, so buckle up and please join me and welcome to the stage the one and only, the fabulous Mark Segal.
Collaborating.
Right.
Hi, everybody.
I think we have mics here, Mark.
We do.
All right, so Mr. Segal, we're going to talk about.
Oh, we're going to be formal?
No, not really. We're going to talk about some activism first. And Mark, my friend, if you can take us back to Stonewall, 1969, what was going through your mind that night it all began?
When I tell the story, I think I have to encapsulate it to why I was at Stonewall. I was born in 1951. I know some of you are shocked there saying that's prehistoric. I'm 74 years old. So I grew up in the 1950s and the 1960s. Growing up, when I finally began to understand who I was, I couldn't understand why I couldn't talk about it. I just knew I could not. I knew I couldn't talk to my parents, who I loved dearly, couldn't talk to my friends. I knew there was something wrong. So I decided to go to my library. And in my library at that time, there were only 5 books that talked about people like me. They were in the psychological department. They were in the religious department. They were in the medical department. And they were in the criminology department. So at about 13 years old, I learned that I was psychologically unsound, morally doomed, probably a criminal, and probably would end up in jail. That's how most people of my age grew up. So I then understood why I couldn't. Well, let's wait for the question. Let me finish the story. Okay. I grew up in Philadelphia, 90 miles from New York. I decided at that time I wanted to know more about who I was, but I knew I couldn't find it in my city of Philadelphia, a city of 1.6 million people, because I thought I was the only one. But late at night on PBS, public broadcasting, which is now being censored by our government, I saw a late night TV show, a David Susskind show, where they had real live homosexuals. People who were like me, at least I thought so. They had paper bags over their head. But what I did learn from that was that gay people or homosexuals lived in New York. So the minute I graduated high school, May 10th, 1969, I hopped a train and I went to New York. Now, I didn't know where people like me lived, but met. But as soon as I got in at Penn Station, I checked into Sloan House YMCA on 34th Street, which wasn't a great place, but now is an upscale apartment building. And took the train down to Greenwich Village because I had heard that's where all, the hippies lived and strange people lived, and got off at 4th Street. There were no, neon signs saying this way to the gay people. So I started looking around for gay people. I eventually found Christer Street, which in 1969 was the head of what we now would call the gayborhood. And it was nirvana. I felt there were people there like me. And I just started walking up and down, and eventually I just became friends with people. And at 18 years old, my life at that time was living at the YMCA, and around 6 o'clock at night, going to Christer Street, and all night long, walking up and down Christer Street, maybe stopping at the Silver Dollar Diner, and talking with my friends, hanging out with my friends, like any 18-year-old would do. But my friends happened to be gay people, drag queens, what have you. But every night, at about 11:30, 12 o'clock, we would go into the Stonewall. The reason we went into the Stonewall was, in a city of 6 million people, New York, it was the only place the gay men, lesbian women, drag queens could dance. What 18-year-old kid doesn't want to dance their ass off? We could hold hands. We could kiss. It was our safe place. You see, out on Christer Street, even though it was our street, people from the outer boroughs or other areas of Manhattan would come in, and we could be beat. we could be harassed, not only by them, but also by the police. Inside that bar, an illegal bar with no license, dirty bar. You got watered down drinks, but we felt it was safe until June 28th.
1969.
Yep, 6 weeks after I had moved to New York. That night, I was in the back of the bar near the dance floor, which is where I always was. The lights blinked on and off. I asked a friend what was going on, and they said, "Oh, just a raid." You see, in New York, the idea was the police would inform the bar when they were going to raid it. They would just walk in, they would take money, and they would walk out. Not that night. That night, they barged through the doors. That night, they went to the bar, took bottles of liquor, started throwing them at people. That night, they pushed us up against the wall. It was pretty violent. For an 18-year-old kid from Philadelphia, I'd never seen such violence in my life before. And I became very depressed, thinking, is this what it's about being gay? And then I thought, better call the police. Well, this was the police who were doing this. And if people like me couldn't count on the police for protection, how low in society was we, as a people? I was extremely depressed, very depressed. And then we got outside. Outside, a good deal of people who had good jobs or family in the area, they just ran away. But those of us who were street kids, as I was, or marginalized, or didn't have good jobs or family in the area, we all stayed. Eventually, the police wanted to leave. And when they wanted to leave, we just started throwing things at the door. It could be coins in our pocket, it could be a stone from the street, it could be an empty can of soda, didn't matter. The interesting aspect was they retreated into the bar. And my thought now, 56 years later, was, for years the police had been incarcerating us. This was the first time we incarcerated the police. About that time, a wonderful man, good friend of mine by the name of Marty Robinson, came by. And he gave me a piece of chalk. And this is what I am known for. He said, "Mark, I want you to go up and down the street and write on the streets and on the walls, 'Tomorrow night, Stonewall.'" Very simple. I had no idea what that was all about. But what I realize now is that's when I became an activist. And I didn't even know what an activist was. So I did that, and from that created the second night of Stonewall, where Marty and Martha Shelley spoke from the steps of what was the Stonewall, now closed. And from that, we created Gay Liberation Front, the first organization that had the spirit of Stonewall, and our slogan was, "Out loud and proud. We will no longer be invisible."
Wow, wow. I mean, Stonewall is considered the birth of our LGBT civil rights movement in this country. You were 18 when that happened. How did that moment shape your identity as an activist?
Good question. By the way, if you're doing your math, I'm now 74. I am very lucky in the fact that I had good parents and grandparents, and I've often thought about what got me to take that chalk from Marty and do that writing and not be afraid. Right. And after all these years, I think I've come up with the reason. My grandmother, who I love and adore, Fanny Weinstein was her name, she and her family had to leave Russia because of pogroms. Pogroms were when the Cossacks came into Jewish villages and destroyed them because they were Jewish. So my grandparents were immigrants to the United States. My grandmother, when she was in her 20s, became a suffragette and fought for women's rights to vote. And when I was 13 years old, she came into my house and told my mother, "I'm taking Mark to a demonstration." So I got to march in my first demonstration.
At 15?
13.
13, okay.
13. Yeah. That's where I met Cecil B. Moore and others. And so I think that that understanding of discrimination and hatred and what I saw in the bar and what I saw in that library back in Philadelphia, all of that came together. And so when Marty handed me that chalk, to me that said, no more. You know, women are fighting, it's 1969, women are fighting for their rights, blacks are fighting for their rights, Latinos are fighting for their rights. Why not us?
That's great. So when you think about Stonewall, there's some misconceptions. What misconceptions do people have still today about the Stonewall uprising? So it was no proverbial brick that was thrown, right?
No. There was no brick. It was anything you picked up, and nobody knows who threw the first thing. A riot isn't publicly organized. It's spontaneous. Anyone who says they know every single person that was Stonewall probably wasn't a Stonewall, because again, it was a riot, and in a riot, you're not taking a roll call. How many people were there? I often say it was 50 to 100. I've heard various figures throughout. The one that I hate the most, that really offends me, is, oh, the gay people rioted because Judy Garland had died. That is an insult. I was 18 years old. I had torn jeans and T-shirts. People like me weren't listening to Judy Garland. We didn't even care about Judy Garland. We were listening to the Beatles. We were listening to Hair. And the only song that I can remember dancing to in Stonewall is Aquarius, Let the Sun Shine In. That was my music and our music at that time. And the interesting aspect of that period of time in history is during the 1960s, there were over 100 riots in America of all types, whether they be racial riots or riots against the Vietnam War. We had one riot, and that was it. Why is our one riot made like Hollywood? That's a stereotype. Now, the other interesting point was, where did that come from? So the first article to be written about Stonewall was by a reporter who worked for the Village Voice. And Village Voice was on the corner from where Stonewall was. And he wrote the article, and he's the first one that said, probably the reason, blah, 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 was Judy Garland. Now, if you read that article, which you could still do, it's online, the most interesting aspect of the article was that he also happened to be a friend of Inspector Pine, who led the raid. And at the end of the article, he said, well, the bar was destroyed. It probably was destroyed by the gay people. I think we call that biased journalism, but that's where that rumor started, from a straight man who was friends with the man who raided the bar.
Let's talk about disruption with a purpose. Stonewall happened in 1969, but it was an entire year of organizing, and different organizations came up, the Gay Liberation Front, then later on the Gay Raiders. So I want to talk, you're famous for ZAP tactics over the years, like interrupting live TV in the 1970s. What drove you to take those bold actions? Because you were a young activist then.
That period of time, I was 18 through my 20s. Gay Liberation Front, most people say, when they ask what school you went to, people might say NYU, Texas University. I often say Gay Liberation Front. That was my education. after Stonewall, we came together for the first time as a community. Men, women, people on the right, people on the left, drag queens. We didn't have the word trans people then, but now you would say trans people. And we accepted everybody for whatever their identity was. And we respected them for that. And we all had a united cause, which was to do two things. Primarily become visible. And the other thing was doing something that had never been done before, creating an LGBT community. There was no LGBT community. There were sporadic demonstrations, there were sporadic things that popped up, but in those days, there were only 4 places that LGBT people met. There were the 10 or so LGBT organizations that existed only in big cities around this country, and they would have meetings maybe once a month or what have you, and 10, 20 people might show up. There were private parties where people would go, and there were cruising places. That was about it. We had no services serving our community. Well, Gay Liberation Front realized that, and the first thing we wanted to do was to basically self-identify. Let ourselves be identified by who we are. We aren't like everybody else, and we wanted people to know us and to see us and to have us heard. Next thing and most important thing is we wanted to create a community. And what does a community do? We help each other. So the first thing we started doing were handing out flyers on Christopher Street. Those flyers, the first ones were, if you need legal help and if you are arrested, here are lawyers you could call who will help you. Next one was, if you have medical needs, here's where you can go. These are doctors who you can talk to and tell them what you need them to hear. Then we handed out leaflets saying, we are organizing as gay people. I think you have one of the flyers from Mattachine in your collection. Homosexuals are organizing. Come visit us. Come join us. We then did social events like dances. We created a gay youth organization. We created the first trans organization. If all of that were not enough, at the end of that first year, we created Christopher Street Gay Liberation Organization, which held the first gay pride. Not bad for 1 year.
That's right. That's so true. But Mark, looking back though, do you think civil disobedience is still effective today in fighting for our LGBT rights?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's taken me many years to process, and I'm still processing all the things I did and how crazy it was and what the effects were, and if I should have done them or not, quite honestly. So what I learned in Gay Liberation Front was that we had to be very visible. The only way we're going to change society is if they get to know us. Because without knowing us, we're that green-eyed monster in the closet.
That's right.
Yeah. So they need to get to know us. And the way to get to know us is for us to be in front of them. And up to 1972, I didn't think that was going very far.
Right.
So therefore, I decided that we had to be front and center in front of society. And there was no internet. There wasn't social media. There were only 3 TV networks, ABC, CBS, NBC. And it was against FCC rules, Federal Communication rules, to have people like you and I on TV. It was a rule. So there was no LGBT anchors or dramas on TV, no comedies. We were totally invisible. America didn't see us. So they didn't learn of who we were. So I decided to change that. That was something that I am personally proud of. So the first disruption I did was the NBC Today show, which was pretty easy. People asked me, you asked me last night,
Yes.
How I got in to do that. Well, at 30 Rock at New York, NBC offers tours of their studio. So my friend Harry Langhorne and I went on the last tour of the evening of 30 Rock, and at the end of the tour, we sort of hung back and we found a closet to hide in overnight.
In a closet.
Where else do you hide, right?
Right, exactly.
And so at 6 o'clock the Today Show came on. So we waited till the 7 o'clock news break because we knew more people would be watching it. And so at about 5 or 7, we left our little closet and found our way to the studio, which thanks to the NBC tour, we knew where it was. And walked in and disrupted the morning news. And we were, quickly hustled out into a hallway, and a woman came out taking notes and said, "Why did you do this?" And we gave her the story, and some guy came out and said, "You got to get in there." And she said, "Not till I know what this is about." She left us after getting the story, went in and reported on NBC News why we were there and what we were doing. That was the first time any LGBT demonstration was ever mentioned on network news. The person that read that story was Barbara Walters.
Barbara Walters. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And then from that came what you saw, the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.
Right. Yeah. And I agree. I think today it takes more than just civil disobedience. I think it takes everything. I think it takes the folks in suits at Lambda Legal. I think it takes HRC pushing for the right legislation. I think it's the parenting organizations helping us develop our families. The churches, the religious, like Cathedral of Hope. I mean, it takes us all to get to a place where we can affect change. I've been fighting in the trenches of the LGBT community for 3 decades. And people talk about the gay community has an agenda. The gay community, and after 3 decades, we do have an agenda. And that agenda is one word, and that one word is equality. So I want to take us now to your publishing legacy, if you would. You founded Philadelphia Gay News in 1976. So you guys celebrate 50 years next year. Congratulations. Can we give it up for that, right? What gap were you filling in 1976 in the media landscape?
Very simple, to give us a communication tool among ourselves, to inform our community of things they needed to be informed of, and to give our community a chance to voice their own opinion. We were very proud of the fact that we had a very robust letters to the editor and op-ed page. And if you disagreed with anything that we, the publisher or writers or reporters in the paper said, we wanted you to write a letter to the editor or an op-ed article, because if we're not united as a community, we're not going to get anywhere. And we need to discuss our fractions. We're a fractious community. And when we did the Cronkite Zap or the NBC Zap, most of my community was opposed to that. And that still stings a little. But now we're sort of like heroic because of those things. And that's hard to process after 90-some% of your community really hated you for doing it, and now it's the other way around. And what I like to say to them now, without that, you wouldn't be seeing a Rachel Maddow or an Anderson Cooper or a Will and Grace.
Right.
Yeah.
That is so true. That is so true.
So civil disobedience might be necessary today.
Absolutely. Mark and I are involved in a media collaborative effort called News is Out. We're both founders of this. There's 6 publications, legacy publications across the country that collaborate together to make inroads in philanthropic community, to funnel money into LGBT media, and corporate America as well, to funnel money into LGBT media. And so I'm thinking back about when you started the Philadelphia Gay News. What challenges did you face in trying to start a gay newspaper in Philadelphia?
Oh my God. In those days, the simplest thing, what printer would print us? Very simple. Where would we get the tools to lay out the newspaper?
Right.
Where would we get the money to buy the tools? I mean, the way I got into the newspaper business is after doing all those zaps, my friend Jim Austin, who published the Pittsburgh Gay News, asked me to support him creating the Cleveland Gay News, and so asked me to come and speak on this round around Ohio. And on the way back, he said to me, why don't you start one of these newspapers in Philadelphia? And I said, I don't know the first thing about, journalism. And he said, Mark, look at your shoe. And I did. And there were holes in it. And he says, sometime you're going to have to do something for a living. And that's how Philadelphia Gay News was started. I knew nothing about journalism whatsoever. But what I did know was visibility. That's been a word that's been ingrained in me my whole life. And so I was trying to get visibility for the gay community, and I thought, what about visibility within our community and talking amongst ourselves? So I started going around asking people for money, trying to find a printer, learning the aspects of journalism. It took a while, but it's one of the things I'm proud of that I've learned. Everything I've done along my way, by the way, I have no training for.
Well,
Zero.
Visibility is highly important. When I've been at Dallas Voice 32 years, and about 12 years ago I bought it and became its second publisher. And I started a publication called Out North Texas, and I wanted to name it Out North Texas because when we passed marriage equality, the reason why that happened was Americans knew gay people and lesbian people and transgender people. And they were like, yes, they should be able to get married as well. So it was important to me to be able to create a publication and name it Out because it's important for us all to live our authentic lives and be out and open and proud. And so the more that we can do that, the more we get to that gay agenda, which is equality. So I want to talk a little bit about the personal behind the political. So your memoir right here in front of us here is entitled "And Then I Danced." What does that title mean to you? Can you share that with us?
Oh, yeah. I get very emotional. I get very emotional about this.
That's what I was hoping.
And each time I'm asked that, I get more and more emotional about it. They say you get emotional at age. That might be it, but I'm not sure. The reason it is entitled "And Then I Danced" is that I talk about my life and all the things that I've done up to this point. And a lot of it has been really difficult, but I've been lucky enough to see all the changes in society, which brighten my heart each and every day. One of the things that I had to fight for was becoming a member of the Pennsylvania Newspaper Publishers Association. For 15 years, they wouldn't accept a gay newspaper. So finally, I was accepted as a member of the organization after the Philadelphia Inquirer said they would take away their membership if we were not given membership because we were as good as any other newspaper in the state of Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Thank you, Philadelphia Inquirer. So many years later, as I'm writing this book, I have now been elected to the board of directors of the Pennsylvania Newspaper Association. And I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, about to receive the Ben Franklin Award, which is the highest award that any publisher could get in the state of Pennsylvania. And I'm in the hotel room that night, writing the last chapter of this book. And as I write the last chapter of this book, I'm thinking about, I'm going to get this award tomorrow. And it's sort of amazing the road I've traveled. And what am I doing after that? And I remember that the following week, Jason and I, my husband, and I were invited to the White House, Obama's White House, please. And after all of the things I've done, and then I danced with my husband at the White House.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. And I think that might answer my next question. I don't know. Let's see. So you've met presidents, you've protested popes, you've danced with history. What moment surprised even you? Is it that dance in the White House?
It's what happened after the dance.
Okay.
Do any of you know the word chutzpah? My husband, 21 years, who was the love of my life, never gets excited, everything is just okay with him. He'll go with the flow. Well, I had worked with President Obama during the campaign. And when he became president, the first time he came to Philadelphia, I was one of his hosts as President of the United States. When the President of the United States comes to your city, the senators of that state get to pick official hosts for the president. Well, my senator, which at that time was Arnold Inspector, picked me as one of the hosts. And the key thing here is if you get to be a host of the president, you get a few minutes privately with the president.
Nice.
So Obama asked me, how am I doing? And I said, well, what have you funded so far in the LGBT community? And he couldn't think of anything. So he says, well, what could I do? And I was working on an LGBT senior affordable living facility. And I said, I'm working on this project, da, 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 da. And he said, well, send me, the plans and we'll see if we can help you with it. And I said, Mr. President, you don't have time to look at anything I might send you. And he called his bagman over, whose name was Reggie, and said, give him your email. That night I sent him the plan. The John C. Anderson building became a White House champion project. It was the first official LGBT senior affordable LGBT living space in America. It's now been copied by 20 other cities in America.
Congratulations.
Not the end of the story. So I worked with the Obama administration to get this done. And once again, Jason and I are at the White House. If you go to a White House reception, it's very formal. And then everybody's asked if they want their picture taken with the President and First Lady. And so Jason and I got in the line. And just before you step up to get your picture taken, there's a Marine soldier in full dress uniform with white gloves on. Right. And he says, Mr. President, Mark Segal and his guest, Jason Villamez. And we step up on the platform and they pose you. And I think for a minute and I say, this is where the chutzpah part comes in. I go, Mr. President, I got plenty of pictures of me, so why don't I pose Jason over next to you, and I'll stand next to the First Lady. You don't mind, do you? And I'm rearranging us.
That's so funny.
And the President does one of these. And Mrs. Obama just says, yeah, Mark. And the picture's in the book.
Yes.
Oh, and that is the only time I've ever seen Jason nervous.
Well, you've had really an amazing journey. So what would young Mark, standing outside of Stonewall Inn today, think of where you are today?
Oh, easy answer, and I've said this so many times, and each time I want to cry. Number one, I would never believe where we are today. Never. And I'm a member of Gay Liberation Front Foundation, which is 8 of us who are still around, who went through this change. And none of us thought we'd be as far along as we are today. So that's the good part. And when I think about it, I think about something that we all have in common. And we all have in common the point of when we came out. So one thing we all have in common, we were all probably frightened, scared. And if you told your parents, that was a nerve-wracking point. And I did it when I was 19. I was president of Gay Youth New York, and I did it the very brave way. I called my parents on the phone. And my father answered the phone, and I said, Dad, I'm gay. And he said, yeah, I knew that. Here, talk to your mother. My mother gets on the phone. I said, Mom, I'm gay. And she was very quiet for a while. I said, Mom, what's wrong? And her response was, I love you, but I'm very worried that when you're old, you'll be lonely. If my mom were here today, I'd be able to say to her, Mom, I'm old. Mom, I'm very happy. And Mom, guess what? You have a son-in-law. We're legally married.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much for that. I want to go back and look at reflections and some advice. Okay, so what could you pass, if you can pass one lesson on to the next generation of activists or LGBT journalists, what would it be? One lesson.
We're not done yet.
Huh? We're not done yet.
You could be married today and go to a hotel somewhere and say, we'd like the honeymoon suite. We just got married. And they could say no. That's legal practically everywhere. You can get married, but it's illegal for you to have that hotel suite. It's illegal in 20-some states for you to have any rights whatsoever, other than marriage. Isn't that crazy? And then now we have the situation that even your marriage might be taken away.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We're not done. We need more visibility. We need people to be more out loud and proud. And you know what we need to do? We need to do it with a smile. Because they hate when we smile.
And zaps, right? Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I expect, I haven't been arrested in many years, and I'm ready to get arrested again.
All right, let's have some fun. So what's a story from your book or your life that always makes you laugh, even today?
The one I've already said about, telling Obama what to do.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. And what about who's someone that you've met on your journey who left you completely starstruck, other than me?
I don't think I've been starstruck by anybody.
Really?
I guess Walter, maybe. Walter is one of the most generous people I've ever met in my life. And I know what you saw there was him being shocked and scared. And he tells you that in his own, you could read, if you get the book Cronkite, there's a whole chapter on Walter and I. Walter and I became friends. And also I called him when I was about to do the newspaper, and he said, yes, you should do it. And one of the reasons we're the most award-winning newspaper in America, LGBT newspaper in America, is because I have Walter as a mentor.
Yeah, I mean, and he was the most trusted man in America. I mean, he was really the person that everybody looked up to and everybody tuned into. So, right, exactly. Let's see here. We've known each other for more than a decade, and we've worked closely together with News is Out and the National LGBT Media Association. And I'd love to know, what was your first impression of me? Throw that in
Oh my
there.
God. By the way, I love this man. I adore him. And I told him something the other day, which for many, many years, I was sort of like the head honcho of LGBT media. I was president of the Gay Media Association, gay LGBT newspaper guild, so forth. This is the new me.
Thank you. I appreciate
You have no idea how hard this man works. He basically is the president of News is Out. He is president of National Gay Newspaper Association. He is the liaison for Lion newspapers and for alternative newspapers of America. And plus he does Dallas Voice. And North Dallas. Am I missing anything? Plus
No,
he's married for 43 years.
Well,
has 2 sons.
Well, for someone who's mentored so many people, including myself, what have you learned from mentoring?
Oh, mentoring is probably the most joyous thing you could do. I've gotten to see people grow, and it's a joy. And can I give one example? God, I've never talked about this publicly before. So one of my mentees is some of you, how many of you know politics? Anybody out there? Well, one of my mentees is a black man from Philadelphia. His name is Kenyatta. Malcolm Kenyatta. Yep, you got it. So I knew Malcolm when he was 17 years old.
Wow.
And Malcolm was in the closet at that point. Malcolm is an amazing, eloquent man. and he wanted to get into politics, and he didn't know if he could as being a gay man. So I set him up with Sherry Cohen, who was running to be a judge in Philadelphia. And he became her campaign manager, and that was his first job. Now, they lost the campaign, but that doesn't matter. It had him entering the LGBT community, and he became out during that period of time. And from there, we got him in other political positions. Eventually, he decided to run for state legislature as a black gay man from North Philadelphia. North Philadelphia is a tough neighborhood. And all the preachers in that black neighborhood fought against him and put out flyers against him. Guess what? He won. He has gone on to run for other offices, and right now, as of last month, he is now the vice chair of the Democratic National Committee.
Nice.
Now, me getting a chance to watch that growth, I mean, is that not joy? That's the next, generation of leaders. It's a pure joy. And I've had that kind of joy with many other people. So, I mean, I can sit back here and watch the rest of all this stuff go.
Wow. So I want to get moments behind the curtain, okay? You've told some incredible stories publicly. What's one story you've never told before on a stage, but you might tonight?
Okay.
Tell you ready? Hard questions, so right.
Yeah. So I have fought all types of discrimination in my life. I grew up as the only Jewish family in a Philadelphia public housing project. At 5 years old, the Italian and Irish kids in the neighborhood would say, "Oh, you're Jewish, you have horns on your head." I grew up understanding poverty, anti-Semitism, and then my grandmother taught me about the civil rights movement. And then I got involved in the LGBT movement. I learned a very different form of discrimination when I met my husband.
Wow.
Never talked about this before.
I've never heard this one.
And you know
Right.
Jason.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Jason and I have a major age difference. He is much younger than me. Also, by the way, much more mature than me.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. And when I started going out with Jason, some of my friends and relatives were absolutely offended by the age difference. And I had one cousin who I was taking out to dinner to introduce her to Jason, and she sat there and then just said, "I can't sit here anymore," and left the restaurant. 21 years later, she now celebrates our relationship because she understands what we've given to each other.
Wow.
So age discrimination, yeah.
We got to fight it all, right? You've been in rooms with icons, with politicians, with change makers. Which room or person felt the most significant? Was it Walter Cronkite or Phil Donahue or on stage tonight?
Oh, you, Leo, of course. Three that you mentioned, actually.
Yeah.
Because they all have different parts of my life.
Right.
Walter, just because his generosity was just amazing to me. I mean, you would think that I would be one person he would never want to talk to ever again. The only one who's ever disrupted his broadcast. But he reached out to me and wanted to understand why I did that. And we talked about it. And I said to him, "Your show discriminates." And he took umbrage to that. And I said, "If I could show you how you do that, would you change it?" And I said, "Let me give you one example. You reported last week, after my zap, your first story ever, you reported that New York City refused to pass a gay rights bill." And he said, "But that was news." I said, "I agree with you. But why is it that you haven't reported on the 26 other cities that have passed gay rights?" That's bias. The following week, If you came back and watched the Walter Cronkite CBS Evening News, there he was with a pointer pointing out cities that had passed gay rights legislation. How could you not love that man? Yeah, and then, and then we met at a function, and he gave me his card and said, next time you're in New York, call me and we'll have lunch. Wow. And that's how we became friends. Until his death, we were friends. I could call him, and he would pick up the phone, and we could talk. He was one. The Chicago Holocaust Museum, just like the Dallas Holocaust Museum, had the, and I don't know how many of you saw it, Stonewall Rising exhibit that came through here. I was part of that exhibit. And in Chicago, they asked me to go through the exhibit on videotape. And I did so, and they came across the Cronkite Zap. And they said, what did you do after that? And I thought for a while. They said, why don't you go to that picture over there? And there was a picture of me and a man called who was Governor Milton Schaap of Pennsylvania. When I was doing those TV zaps, I probably was the most well-known gay man in America. And therefore, I was getting on TV shows, what have you. So having a big head, I thought, oh, I'll contact my governor, ask him for a meeting. No governor in America had ever met with a gay activist. Governor Schaap surprisingly said he would meet with me. And when we met, he said, well, what can I do for you? I said, of course, going for the gold ring, well, you can create gay liaisons, you can create a commission to look at the problems of gay men and lesbian women in Pennsylvania, you can issue a gay pride resolution, you could do non-discrimination. And I left that meeting thinking I'd never hear from him again. Within a month, I heard from his attorney general, and we started drafting the first non-discrimination law that any governor would ever put out. And in 1975, it became illegal to discriminate in employment in state government in Pennsylvania. Governor Schaap, this is a little long story, he then issued the first gay pride resolution. But my favorite memory of him was the minute he said there couldn't be discrimination in any department in state government, Colonel Barger, a name I will never forget, went into his office and slammed on his desk, I will not have faggots as state troopers, and slammed the door and left. And this got reported by Associated Press. That night, Lieutenant Governor Ernie, God, I can't remember, it's so long ago, Ernie Klein called me and said, the governor has requested that you go to the state barracks on Belmont Hill tomorrow at 9 a.m. and sign up to become a state trooper.
Wow.
So at 9 a.m. the following morning, I show up, long hair, ripped jeans.
Holes in your shoes, right?
Right, yeah. Sign up to become, and the governor's office had called out the entire state press pool for this. So I come out of the barracks, and there's all these lights and cameras and reporters, and the first one puts a mic in my face and says, Mark, you're a homosexual, aren't you? Yes, I'm a homosexual. Why would you want to be a state trooper? And I jokingly said, because I like men in uniform. And then I said, to be serious, if I or any LGBT person could do the job, shouldn't they have the right to have that job? Colonel Barger apologized, and from that point on, we've had state troopers, gay state troopers. But my favorite story of all of Schaap, Schaap became my political mentor. I went from being a person who was a radical activist disrupting to being taught by Governor Schaap how to work the system. He even bought me a blue blazer and had me work the legislature, try to pass legislation. That was a major change in my life. And we got, this is now 1975 through 77. And we got a lot of grief. And when we were issuing all these documents, we asked the legislators to join us. No one would join us. And in fact, we were called names. some of which I won't mention here, but you can imagine. There was a rumor going around why the governor was doing these things for me. When he was leaving office, I threw a dinner for him, and I took him out and I thanked him privately, and I said, Governor, why did you do all this? Why did you suffer all this heartache? And he looked at me and he smiled and he says, Mark, you know, I too am in the closet. And he started laughing. And I looked shocked, of course. And he said, my name isn't Shap. My real name is Shapiro. I couldn't get elected governor of Pennsylvania as a Jew, so I understand what discrimination is.
Wow.
Come 40-some years, 50-some years later, the name of the governor of Pennsylvania right now, Josh Shapiro.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, and Josh Shapiro, if you're governor of a state, you get that when you're no longer governor, they hang your portrait. Governor Shapiro has already reserved a space across from Governor Shap to have his portrait hung.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this is a good question that you've led me into. How do you navigate being a publisher and an activist? Do the roles ever conflict?
Oh, absolutely. Number one, I'm a fond believer as a publisher, you have an editor and you don't tell them what to do. I'm involved in a lot of stories. A lot of time they get published without my name even being in them, and the editor doesn't even know I'm involved in them. A perfect example was the LGBT senior housing project. They kept writing about plans for this building and didn't know I was the driving force behind it until after we finally got all the contracts in line. And I wrote, I have a weekly column in my paper called Mark My Words. And I wrote a column called The Pie in the Sky Project, because this guy who's never been trained for anything is going to build a $19 million building with federal, state, and city funding. That's a pie in the sky project, right? Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? It's open. And 62 apartments later, they're all full, and we have a 300-person waiting list.
Nice, nice. I want to talk a little bit about legacy and leadership. You've already changed history, but is there something that you still want to do that you haven't yet?
Oh, absolutely. Pass the Equality Act through the House, Senate, and get it signed by the president.
Right.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but the first time that was ever introduced was 1976 by Bella Abzug. It's been introduced every year since. It was passed by the Senate one time, but not the House. That's the most important thing that we could do, is to pass that and get it signed by the president, and then we wouldn't have to worry about people like Thomas on the Supreme Court trying to take our rights away, because our rights would be codified by Congress.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you've seen the LGBT movement evolve through tragedy, through triumph, and through transformation, right? What's the one moment that brings you to tears even now?
Getting married.
Gay marriage?
Yep. No. Getting married.
Oh, getting married. Okay.
Marriage equality was, like everything, a fight in our community. And I'm happy to say that in my state, I fought to get marriage equality, and we had it a year before the Supreme Court ruled. And my husband wanted to get married once it started going around the various states. And I said, I can't get married until it's legal in my own state. I won't. And so the minute the governor called me and said, I'm about ready to announce that we'll have marriage equality in Pennsylvania, I looked at Jason, I said, we're going to have marriage equality. He said, okay, let's go get a license. 5 minutes later, it got announced on the news, and the mayor of my city called me and said, why don't you come over to City Hall and you will issue a marriage license. I got to issue marriage license, which was really neat. And then and again, we had to rush to City Hall. So when we got to City Hall, so after issuing a few of them, Jason said again, "What about us?" So I went from behind the counter in front of the counter. We got in line, we're about to get our marriage license, and I think it was $76 or something like that. And they said $76. And believe it or not, in Philadelphia at that time, they didn't take credit cards.
Oh.
And neither Jason or I had cash. And literally, the mayor of Philadelphia paid for our marriage license.
Nice.
But I'm sort of long-winded. I guess you've gotten that by now. But so we got the marriage license, and we didn't think anything about it. And Jason looks at it, and he says, "You know, there's an expiration date on this thing?" What? And I go, "No, I didn't." And so when we figured that out, we tried to figure out between our calendars and when we can get married. And so the date we got married was July 5th. And in my area, I'm somewhat well known, so we kept it very quiet. We were only going to have family and close friends. And we decided it would be a wedding of 30 people, period. But the only symbolic part about it for us was that I was asking my friend Dan Anders to marry us. Judge Dan Anders, first appointed judge in Pennsylvania. We were doing our vows, and Jason went first. Jason is more brilliant than I will ever be, and he wrote the most beautiful vows. And if I start speaking them out, I will cry. And then Dan looks at me and said, "Mark, would you like to read your vows?" And I had something very beautiful, I thought, written out. And for the one and only time in my life, I couldn't speak. I just cried.
Wow.
And I've never said my vow. All I said was, "Yes, I do."
I do.
I didn't think and understand how important marriage would be, because I'd grown up thinking it was never a possibility. And I thought, oh, if I ever found the person I loved, we would just live together, we don't need a piece of paper. I then at that moment realized how important that was. And about 15, 20 minutes before that, before I got married, Jason's mother gave us each a piece of her wedding veil.
Oh, wow.
And not having my mother there, but having his mother do that, I've never told this story before, was probably the most important part of my life. Yeah. And all the parts of my life sort of came together at that point. Fighting for marriage equality, or fighting for equality, period. Having the love of my life in front of me. Having Dan there, someone I fought to get into political life and to become a judge. I don't know, I think that just brought it all together for me.
Wow.
I'm sorry if I...
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I felt kind of similar when we adopted kids. We adopted 2 kids from the foster care system 17 years ago, and we never thought it would ever be possible. And it's kind of a watershed kind of moment kind of thing, right? Well, I have one more question for you, okay? And this is, what do you want people to say about you 100 years from now when they read your name in the history books?
Well, if they do, I will be a footnote somewhere. And one thing, I literally fought against talking about my time at Stonewall. And the reason I did that was something I said to you earlier. There were many of us at Stonewall. It was spontaneous. We all did a little. None of us planned it. We were just there. The media zaps is something that I planned and something that I, organized. And I had an objective, which was making us visible on TV. And I think that's what I should be remembered for. I won't. And a few years ago when they were getting ready to open the Stonewall National Monument Visitor Center, the 2 women of color, because I think that's very important, that people should realize it was 2 women of color that thought of getting this together, came to me and said, "We need you, to start talking about your time at Stonewall." Mm-hmm. And the reason I didn't talk about my time at Stonewall was because it's, in New York City at least, it is the most contentious thing you could ever talk about. But what these two women discovered, and which was fascinating, was that of that time period, of everyone who says that they were at Stonewall, I'm the only one that has some documented proof. So there's a picture on my website, marksonstonewall.com, which shows me marching at the first march that we had, which was 30 days after Stonewall, from Washington Square to Stonewall on July 27th, 1969. And that's the earliest picture of any of us. Yeah. So that, and practically every day of my life since then, my activism has been recorded. So that's how I became the curator for the monument. And shockingly to me, very shocking to me, before I did that, I asked my husband, I said, if I start doing this, we will be involved in so many fights, and people will say, this is right, that's wrong, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It's now been open a year, and not one person has stepped forward to go against anything that we've put on the walls, any of the exhibits, because we have the documentation. And that's one thing about our community. We have to start documenting our history, and we have to do it truthfully and honestly.
Wow. Thank you, Mark. So I want to close with this. I want to say, Mark, you've spent your whole life making history, shaking things up, and telling the stories that too many people were afraid to tell. Tonight was just a glimpse of the legacy that you've built, a legacy that really has paved the way for our LGBT community. You've taught me personally that leadership isn't about ego. It's about showing up. It's about lifting others up. It's about not giving up. You've been a mentor to me personally, a collaborator, and more importantly, a true friend. So on behalf of all of us, lucky enough to learn from you and laugh with you, and occasionally try to keep up with you, thank you. Mark Segal, everybody.
All right, folks, well, we
Adrian.
have time for a few questions. If you'll take your seats real quick, and we'll, Wesley, I see you've got your hands up with her. Okay. All right, let me come over here.
Sure. What advice would you give young people considering a lot of things that are happening, the weight of what they're feeling with this political climate, with everything you've been through? What advice would you give them?
Oh, just be visible. Oh, I'm sorry. Just be visible. Don't be afraid of what others are trying to do. They want you to go back in the closet. They don't want you to be out. We have to be out. I mean, take a page from the book of what happened in Orlando when they paved over the rainbow. I mean, people came out and used chalk and painted it themselves. Anytime they're trying to erase us, speak out about it. I just wrote a column for next week's PGN, which I'll send to you. I've been publicly erased for the first time. A few months ago, unbeknownst to me, I got a letter in the mail from a friend who works at the State Department and lives in Washington, D.C. He had gone through the pavilion, the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. And the Liberty Bell has been used for various civil rights and human rights events throughout history. And one of them is LGBT rights. And one of the displays had been, unbeknownst to me, a picture of me with a plaque, which talked about my demonstration at Independence Hall in 1973, where, please don't, I handcuffed myself above the Liberty Bell.
Not the first time you've handcuffed yourself, right?
Right. Well, I tried to handcuff myself to the Liberty Bell, but the police got there too quick. Anyway, that was there. So last week, actually, was first week that Jason and I had a chance to go over and see it. So we got in line and to go and see the Liberty Bell, went through the pavilion, and it's no longer there.
Wow.
So I asked the ranger, and they were, the first ranger I asked was very polite and said, well, it used to be over there, and I don't know what happened to it. And she asked another ranger, and they went and asked the supervisor, and then the supervisor gave me an email that I could send to Washington to ask what happened to it. My point was, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to discover that it's been lost, destroyed, or put in storage. What I am going to do is speak up about it. And so I've written a column about it, which will be published next Friday. And I'm also working with the National Parks Conservation Authority to publicize that issue. It's enough that they're trying to rewrite our history at Stonewall and take away the fact that we had trans people there. I'm not going to allow that to be erased. They were my brothers and sisters. I didn't think that it would become personal for me, but now it's personal.
If I could add to that as well, my husband and I have been together 43 years, and one of the things I've learned from him was, he told me, Leo, don't worry about what other people think of you. They need to worry about what you think of them. And if you think about that, it's pretty profound. We, as a community, we have such low self-esteem a lot of times. And this is looking at ourselves going, okay, live our authentic life, be ourselves. Don't worry about what other people think of us. Certainly, Mark did not worry about what people thought of him when he was running in front of Walter Cronkite's camera, right? So
Correct. You absolutely, very eloquently put.
You got one? Yep.
I love the story about the governor and his allyship being a Jew helping out LGBTQ people. Why do you think it's such an issue for so many, I make up, older gay white men having an issue being an ally for siblings of color and trans individuals within our own community? I mean, that story right there is just a lightning bolt to show the importance of being an ally. And it just boggles my mind that within our own community, we struggle to even be allies to ourselves. Do you have any idea, after your incredible history, any advice about that or how to break through to that to communicate to people that have to stay together?
Thank you for asking that question. I think that's just crystallized for me over the last few days. So what I'm about to say now, I haven't truly thought out, and I hope you'll bear with me and maybe even help me with it. I've been wondering forever why a good deal of primarily white gay men really are opposed to our trans community and some of our marginalized. I don't understand why, as gay men and lesbian women, we do not embrace our trans brothers and sisters. It amazes me. And I know that throughout our history, and this is why our history is very important to us, and before Gay Liberation Front and before Stonewall, there was a group of people who used to demonstrate outside Independence Hall every July 4th. But you had to wear a suit and tie if you were a man. You had to wear a dress if you were a woman. They got nowhere. They got no news because they just wanted to assimilate. Well, then we came along, Gay Liberation Front, and we said, no more. We're going to be who we are, and we're going to be in your face. Fuck all this silent shit. Sorry. And then after us came another group called Gay Activist Alliance, which was because we were interacting with the Young Lords and Black Panthers, because we saw civil rights as everyone's rights.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Then when we worked with Black Panthers, they said, oh, no. So they created another organization, Gay Activist Alliance, which was only going to do LGBT rights. So this has happened on and off in our community for the last 56 years. I've watched this happen, go back and forth. And what the basis, I think, of this argument is people, white men and white women, for the most part, privileged and who don't understand rights, want us to assimilate. The problem being, folks, that ain't going to happen for one very good reason, because the right wing has made gay and lesbian and transgendered one group. So if you want your rights, you better embrace our sisters and brothers who are trans, because we're all connected now. Yeah.
Hi, so,
Oh.
hi, Susan, yes, and I'm the former president of Stonewall Democrats of Dallas here.
Yay!
Dallas County, so we do a lot of political work, obviously, but one of the things that I'm seeing is more and more people standing up against this current administration, which is just symbolic of standing up against these religious groups that have taken over the country. So much so that dear friends of ours who have a trans kid have had to leave the country to find a safe place to live. And they have been incredibly vocal and active. And this little girl has been testifying at the state capitol since she was 7 years old.
She's amazing.
Claiming her humanity. And it's disturbing to me how many people I hear say, well, I'm ready to leave the country. I need to go. You know, I get it. I'm married to a trans woman. The day that we got married as a traditional couple, right? And I hate the pain that is happening here.
Yeah.
And I am continually seeking inspiration for how we can continue to support one another through all this hatred that's aimed at our community and at one another. Like, is the answer to show up with joy, like you said, laugh and smile when you're saying it? They're not listening to us. Political people in Austin, the state capitol, the federal capitol, they're not listening to us. I need some inspiration. What's it going to take?
Okay. I am not blind to the idea that I come to this state as you're about to lose 5 Democratic congresspeople. Not blind to that. And I'm not blind to where I am in this country at this very moment. And I am here because I want to show visibility and always will be visible. I'll go to anywhere in this nation or anywhere in this world to do that. And I think we have to stay visible to do that. But let me give you a little history context, if I can. This is a backlash. It's not the first backlash we have gone through. I mean, I can name so many, starting with Anita Bryant, gays in the military, marriage equality, moral majority, Ronald Reagan closing the curtains on the White House when we marched for information about HIV/AIDS. It's gone on and on and on. But one thing has happened each time. Every single time there's been a backlash, we've come out stronger at the other end. If you stay visible, we will this time as well. And there's a difference this time than all those other times I've mentioned before. That difference is we're not alone. We're not fighting by ourselves. A few weeks ago, there was a demonstration once again against Trump and everything he's doing. And Jason said to me, oh, let's go out and join them. And I said, you know what, I'm tired of marching. I'm going to stay home today. But I went out, and what I noticed at that march was something different than the thousands of marches I've been involved in throughout the years. There was a sign over there, please don't take my child's lunch away. There was another child over there, please don't take the rangers out of my public parks. Another sign over there, please give me my job back. Another sign over there, please keep Alzheimer's funding going. Another sign over there, please keep cancer research going. We're not the only ones who are being banged on these days, people.
We're not the only ones mad.
Yeah, exactly. So,
For other people and not just
right, exactly, which is what Gay Liberation Front always said. You have to work intersectionally with other groups. Today, it's more true than ever.
That's true.
So, be visible. And when you hear about a march out there, write whatever you want. Oh, the most interesting thing about all those signs, they weren't written by unions or corporations. Everybody had handwritten all those signs I talked to you about. I've never seen that before. That was amazing to me. And I realized there is a movement out there that wants to fight this hate. And it's not just the gay and lesbian community. It's society across. And so therefore, I have optimism. I honestly believe that they could do all the tricks they want to do. I think America's going to come around. And as I was taught a long time ago, in America, politics is like a pendulum. It goes all the way one way and then it swings back the other way. And I think we're about as far right as they're going to take us.
Right.
I've never seen it this right, but I've said that twice before. I said that under Ronald Reagan. I said it under George W. Bush.
Right.
I'm saying it after Taco Don.
But you're right. Each time we got stronger, and I think that's what's going to happen this time as well. You know, and I think more and more people are getting behind us and joining the fight.
They're with us, not behind.
With us,
They're
right.
with us, and we're with them.
That's great. All right, we've got time for two more. We've got one right here. Yeah.
Yes, my name is Marco Buckland. I'm a transgender man. I fought for women's rights in my other life. I fought for gay rights. I did the first march in 1976 in Washington, because I'm from originally Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yes!
But I lived in New York and worked for the old Pan Am, so I've been around. It sickens me to see what this administration is doing. I mean, the women's rights, the gay rights, and they hate people like me. I have to have surgery soon. I'm afraid to go to the hospital here. Greg Abbott is he stopped one transgendered woman that was going to have surgery. And I am scared to death. And that's a damn shame. My wife and I were married. I had my birth certificate legally changed to male because I went through everything and all the tests. I didn't just go a couple times like they do now. I did 2 years. And we were legally married in Texas. I went back to work. I worked at Westinghouse at the time in Pittsburgh. Everyone wanted to see our marriage certificate. Everyone never as they say in Pittsburgh, napping into your business. But I am so grateful for what I went through, and it makes me sick. I never thought that I would see the country go back the way it has. I know you've been around a long time, you understand. We have to fight. And stand together. What's the difference if you're trans, bi, what? Even a lot of straight women backed me when I went through my transition, and some men also. They remained friends. So I just want to tell you thank you. I understand.
Keep fighting and being visible, okay? See,
Thank you for your strength and being visible. That is so important today. We are with you.
All right, we have the last one here.
Hello.
Hi.
What I wanted to ask was, for people that are not part of the LGBTQ community and are maybe of the sentiment that, oh, well, my books aren't being taken out of the library, so I don't have to worry, or I've always been going to the same restroom, I don't need to worry about anything. What conversation could you have with somebody like that that would help make them realize how the erosion of LGBTQ plus rights does have a tangible impact on their own lives?
I think this administration is going after everybody's rights. It doesn't matter whose. And assuming you're a heterosexual, I would say, not knowing if you're married or not, but let's just say you're not married, and you get your girlfriend pregnant. That affects you. Every one of us is being cut in half by one thing or another. So best thing I could tell you or anybody else is, let's ally together. and let's fight this. We need changes because there isn't a person here in this room that's not going to be affected in some way, shape, or form by what is happening from this administration, this museum, your organizations that you've all met, you mentioned here today. We're all being affected. There are powers in numbers. And when we all get in the street, and more importantly, when we vote, and I don't want to hear someone ever say to me, oh, this candidate doesn't do all the things I want them to do.
Or my
so
vote doesn't count, right?
Yeah, or my vote doesn't count. It does.
It does.
In Pennsylvania, my good Senator Bob Casey lost an election by 200 votes.
200 votes, right.
And that one senator would have held up this Senate. So don't tell me that. And if you won't vote in an election like Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and you don't see the difference between the two of them, and if you want to say whatever issue you didn't like Kamala for, I would say to you 6 months, 7, 8 months later, are you really enjoying what it did for your issue?
Right.
So you got to realize that not every candidate is perfect. And, you know, I want to say that we embrace everybody, regardless of who they are. At least I do. You know, I even embrace those strange people called heterosexuals. So, so welcome to the fight.
And the fight continues. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yes, thank you, Leo. Thank you, Mark, for a wonderful afternoon. Thank you all for coming out. This has been great. Fabulous, fabulous conversation. Thank you to Unleashed LGBTQ for being our partner on this. Go to unleashedlgbtq.com and find out all about their conference next month. And then I will also put a quick plug. Take a look at the exhibit if you haven't. Think about what it would have meant to you as a young person to be visible in a museum. And remember us, Badge of Pride, on North Texas Giving Day next month, please. All right, thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day.
52?
And go check out the
My
exhibit.
father fled Nazi Germany at the age of 10 with my grandparents. He was in the Second World War.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you,
He's all
He
for
was
it.
a tail gunner on a B-17. Said I was a fighter pilot from
My father was a kid.
Okay. The
We
plane
are.
went down on its
See you,
first
man.
mission in northwestern,
Thank you.
northeastern France, and he spent.
My father was in the